And I can tell you unconditionally, all the pigs in this province don't want to end up slaughtered in a scab plant. When we go, we want to go with dignity.
Thank you, guys.
You're smiling. Does this mean it's a settlement?
Just we'll have to wait and see. I have not enjoyed the last 6.5 months. It's been the longest summer of my life. But we also cannot, as business, afford to pay artificially high wages and expect to carry on and make business work in Alberta, where we pay higher shipping costs and so on. And I don't want to get into the reasons why it happened, but the fact is, hopefully it won't happen in the future. The agreement is a 4-year agreement, so it gives us lots of time to solve our difficulties between us. The thing that I don't like is confrontation. We've got to find a way to solve our problems between management and labor without confrontation, without people being thrown out on the streets for 6 months.
It seems to me you were out for 6.5 months, and you'll probably be going back and you didn't really achieve anything after 6.5 months.
We stopped from taking a $5 cut. If that's not achieving something, then I'm not sure what is.
With all the violence and all the expensive lawyers, all the hearings, all the court actions, all the arrests, is all that worth it?
Well, that just comes with a difficult strike. It's not something you plan on and it's not something you want. But when you get into a bitter strike, certain things happen that neither side are really interested in seeing. It just develops.
Explain point by point. We're going to open this up and have any comments, any discussion. And again, I'll ask that one at a time, because if somebody has something to say, let's give everybody a chance to say it, and let's all hear what they've got to say.
That yes, I, Kit Connolly, went over and had a meeting with Peter Pocklington to see, after 6 months, on the urgence of Don Getty, the Premier, to see if there was any resolution to this dispute. And I'm going to save my personal observations for after I've proceeded to explain the memorandum. And I'm not going to mind, and I'll tell you, and I'm going to say this first thing, because sometimes it takes guts to be a leader, and I'm going to try to point out to you the alternatives of where the hell we go from here if the thing is shut down. And I told you at the last meeting, before I go on, that because of the cruciality, in my view, of the situation, I wanted your entire executive board there to be taking part and parcel in the responsibility of whether we reached a memorandum to bring back to you or whether we didn't, because I'm not going to be, let me put it this way, I'd rather be called an asshole by you people today on what I've brought before you than if we don't win this thing, or if some point in time the money runs out, or I can't negotiate your jobs back, than to be called an asshole at a later date. The terms of the collective agreement between Gainers Inc. and Local 280P of the United Food and Commercial Workers, which expired on June 1st, '86, shall form the basic language of the new collective agreement. There shall be no recrimination or discrimination or discipline whatsoever resulting from the strike or activities related thereto by the company to any employee. Employees who receive jail sentences for strike-related offenses committed during the labor dispute and who are unable to report to work by reason of imprisonment shall be granted a leave of absence without pay in accordance with the leave of absence provisions of the collective agreement, such leave not to exceed 12 months. On a principled issue,
I had said that I would never sign a memorandum for strike-related activity where anybody lost their job as a result of that. I negotiated that clause to ensure that if at a later date somebody is sentenced by something that's beyond our control and goes to jail for 3 weeks, after he's served his jail sentence of 3 weeks, he comes back to work at Gaynor. I couldn't get him to move on the crucial issue of the compulsory overtime arrangement in that plant. All that he agreed to do was to sit down with myself and the committee and to look at ways at trying to circumvent the problem and the difficulties that you've all been having with overtime, because he's certainly aware that's one of the prime reasons that led to this strike.
Employees and workers shall be laid off, and this is our cause to deal with the scab, all gone, and shall not be recalled ahead of any employees set out in clause 3 here. All the scab is gone.
Reality is this is not a parity collective agreement, and there are some things in it that I don't particularly care for, and one of those things is these new rates of pay. But like I said, he wasn't prepared, to give away the ship, and we all know how bloody difficult it's been. So there's some shit in this agreement that we're not too pleased with, and one is the introduction of these new lower rates of pay for new hirees. But the reality is that if everybody's coming back to work, that these rates of pay, in fact, in all eventuality, are going to apply to the scabs, because they probably looked at the scabs and picked and chosen the best ones should the business get better or should a lot of people quit. And in fact, if they have to come back on those rates of pay, well, too bloody bad.
I'm going to call upon Dave Worland to give a comment on it.
Tell us what we want to hear, Dave.
Somebody just said, tell us something we want to hear, Dave. I guess I have to tell you more than one thing, because obviously different people have different viewpoints. It's certainly not my job as the president of the Alberta Federation of Labour to suggest how you should vote on this settlement. You people will be the ones that have to mark your X tomorrow, and you'll be the ones that have to live with whatever the decision is. But I just want to assure you that if you vote to accept this settlement, that will not be seen in the eyes of the trade union movement as any kind of a defeat. Let's go back to the beginning. Peter Pocklington set out to smash your union. Who's the loser in that regard? Peter Pocklington's the loser. He then said he was going to keep the scabs, and the government backed him. Now who's the loser? Now it's true that you didn't, in this memorandum, get your original objectives, which were parity. And you didn't get many other things, like that overtime. I've been at a number of your meetings where, that is really a son of a bitch of a way to have to work, if I may use that terminology. I heard some of that on the picket line. I guess it's okay. But really it comes down to some choices. And I want to tell you just one thing before I tell you what I think some of those choices are. And that is that you will continue to have the support of this trade union movement no matter what your decision is. We've been with you from the beginning, and we're with you through to the end. But I think some of the choices you have to look at are not whether this is the memorandum of agreement you'd like to have or not, because I've never seen a strike settled yet where everybody got everything they wanted. What you have to ask yourselves is whether, if you turn this down and you stay out longer, and you don't know how much longer, whether you'll be back in a room like this one at the end of that period voting on something better or not. That is the question you have to ask yourselves today. If you're convinced that you can get better, and you can get better to the extent that it's worth a greater sacrifice than you've already made, and you make that decision consciously and you're prepared to make that sacrifice and live with it, then that's how you vote. But if you are concerned that you might turn this down and be back here a month or 2 or 6 months later voting on something similar or less, then you'll have to live with that too, if that happens. So these are always, and that isn't just in this dispute, that happens in every single tough struggle that ever occurs. You have those hard decisions to make at the end of the struggle. There's one thing you ought to know, and I think many of you do know, and that is that this province will never, ever be the same again. You people have helped the trade union movement advance forward in a way that will never turn us back. It could have been the steel workers, it could have been the energy and chemical workers that did that, but it happened it was you people, United Food and Commercial Workers. And your strike seized the imagination of the trade union movement like nothing I've seen in the years I've been in the trade union movement, right across this country. And we owe you a debt of gratitude regardless of what your decision is when you mark your ballot tomorrow, and we're going to stick with you. But I want to just say that we spent 6 hours and 42 minutes yesterday in a presentation to the government of Alberta demanding changes in the labor legislation. That review of labor legislation also would not have occurred if it hadn't been for the Gaynor strike. Now we're dealing with Tories, same as you're dealing with a Tory. We're not sure what they're going to do with all of the representations being made to them to change the law. But I can tell you one thing, that just as Pocklington can't win this struggle, the Tories aren't going to win any more bloody struggles against the workers in this province either, and they're either going to change the law or they're going to pay the political price. In closing, I just urge you to think very, very carefully and dispassionately if that's possible. You've got overnight to think about it, and when you mark your ballot, weigh up those alternatives, because there really aren't many others. And do the best you can, and whatever your decision, you are coming out of this strike in a very, very honorable decision, whether it's tomorrow morning on the basis of this memorandum or if it's down the road on the basis of another one. You've conducted yourselves in such a manner that the trade union movement is proud of you, and you're honorable people, and no goddamn Peter Pocklington is going to ever take that away from you, and that guy is going to find this a very difficult province to live in, and I hope they make it just as difficult for him in Saskatchewan. Thank you very much for everything.
This, at the present, is the best we could get. It's better than anything he's proposed so far, but it still falls short of what I consider a good agreement.
If you vote against this, let me finish. If you vote against the report, fine, we go back on the picket line. But if it goes more sour and you got sweet titty, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
We've been fighting here for a long time, 6.5 months. A lot of us put a lot of hours in it. Why throw it away? We were fighting for parity. He's giving us shit. Let's not quit now. We've got 6.5 months. If it takes another 6.5, let's do it. Let's show them that we're together.
The thing that hurts me a lot is this thing about the 4 years contract. Because if we accept something with a 4-year contract, Canada Packers is there, and Fletchers is there, and we might end up hurting them.
Pocklington needs to have his back broken. His idea of free enterprise, where he's got all the say, and the guy that works for him, don't matter dick, need to be stopped dead in their tracks.
God bless.
They got 1,000 people on these
films? No. Okay.
As everybody here is aware of, when we started on the strike, Peter Pocklington was out to destroy us, to destroy the union. He didn't succeed. The results are 61%, well 60.8% in favor of the Memorandum of Agreement. And as far as I'm concerned, we achieved our goal in keeping our union intact and keeping the wages and the benefit levels that we had. So as far as I'm concerned, we've had a victory. I would like to see more, but I'm satisfied that the membership has spoken.
I think it's disgusting. It's the worst thing that could possibly have happened to the labor movement in Alberta, to the strikers themselves. I personally spent 2 months on the road. I've got 3 kids that I'm supporting. I don't even have medical benefits to offer them when I go back into the plant. We've spent 6.5 months on the picket line, and we were better off before we went out. At least then our people weren't freezing on the picket lines. With the support that we've got from the country, the people, the labor movement all across the country, I feel that we've let them down. And if we'd stayed out a little bit longer, you can bet that this wasn't his final offer. He isn't going to offer us the whole world the first time out. And if people would have just realized that, we would never have settled for this contract.
I thought that in the 6.5 months we proved a point. Other industries that had lucrative contracts all took back severe rollbacks. Electricians, boilermakers, tinsmiths, even construction were earning $18, $20, $22 an hour. They are back to $10, $12, and $14 an hour. We went out for 6.5 months and we got everything back that we went out with. So we didn't lose. People would like to get back for Christmas, have their heads straightened around and know where they're going to be tomorrow and the next month. I myself, in the last 6.5 months, didn't know where I was going to be tomorrow or what I was going to be doing.
Well, the 40% of people that voted against the settlement, I mean, some of them feel hurt today and yesterday, but a lot of those are the people that put in the 12, 14, 16-hour days to make sure that we won the strike. And in anything that you do over that period of time and put that much effort in, if you don't win total victory, then you end up a little bit resentful. But I think that once they have the opportunity to sit back and realize the tremendous struggle that they were in, the tremendous forces that were massed against them, including the governments of Alberta up to the Premier, the government of Canada up to the Prime Minister, plus the Chamber of Commerce and the business community. I think that when they have a chance to think about it in quieter times, they're going to be pretty proud of the battle that they conducted. And I know that the labor movement across this country is really proud of them. One of the real crimes in this dispute is the fact that the union was found guilty of contempt of court on the injunction issue. We were fined $12,500 for that offense. Peter Pocklington was found guilty before the Labor Relations Board for bargaining in bad faith. That was subsequently upheld by the Court of Queen's Bench, and he didn't get one nickel by way of fine, and it looks like he's going to get a government patronage grant to expand his plant and perhaps bring in more modern equipment.
Well, we kind of have mixed feelings about it. Obviously, we know that there wasn't everything that the union had wanted to get in their agreement. However, they did in fact tough it out, and we did in fact get union recognition for the union, because that's basically what the issue was in the end. Unfortunately, they had to vote on the issue, which really should have been enforced by law, and that was whether to take the scabs back or whether they have the striking workers go back. So from that point of view, I think it's a victory in that we beat back Pocklington in his attempt to break the union. It illustrates, not only in the province of Alberta, but all across Canada, that if you want to take the labour movement on, you're going to have one hell of a time in your hands. And I think that the Gainers workers, to the last brother and sister, stuck together for 7 months and proved that they weren't going to break the union. And I think that it's it's a sign of the unity in the labor movement today.
Here they come.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
What you see here today is a culmination of an effort that began shortly after Thanksgiving Day. And at that time, we began to think about what we would do for the children of striking workers at Gainers. We knew that the strike could go on some time. We didn't know we'd have a settlement just before. But we began to think about it, and the Metro Toronto, the Labour Council of Metro Toronto gave us a call, and they asked us to what we thought of the idea of them buying gifts, giving them to Santa, and having those gifts distributed to the children of striking workers, and we thought it was a great idea. We then approached the Canadian Labour Congress, and they thought it was a great idea too, so what resulted from that was a nationwide campaign. The provinces that actually purchase gifts are the provinces of Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and also the Northwest Territories. Every single province in the country contributed. If they didn't contribute gifts, then they contributed money. There are 583 children that are covered by the within the UFCW Local 280P, that's 14 years of age and under. And in addition to that, the program was so successful that we decided to extend it to the IWA workers on strike against Zeidlers.
I'd like to thank all the unions and everybody involved in making this a good Christmas for my children. Thank you.
As social chairman at the United Food and Commercial Worker, Local 280P, on behalf of 1,080 workers from Gainers and 583 of their children, I'd like to thank the whole labour movement across Canada, including the CLC, all the Federation of Labourers in every province in the country, the District Labour Congress in every city, and all unions across Canada for doing such a terrific job to ensure that our kids have a good Christmas. I personally have 4 children, and without this program, there wouldn't have been no Christmas for them this year. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and God bless you.